For decades, China faced a monumental environmental crisis. It was a slow-moving but relentless enemy. This enemy was the desert. Vast seas of sand were expanding, swallowing everything in their path. Fertile farmland, entire villages, and critical infrastructure vanished under the encroaching dunes. This process, known as desertification, was so devastating that it earned the name the cancer of the earth. Over a quarter of China's total landmass, an area covering 2.6 million square kilometers, was classified as desertified. The consequences for the nation were dire and far-reaching, affecting the lives of millions of people who lived on the front lines of this environmental war. The human cost of this expanding desert was immense. Fierce sandstorms, originating from the arid lands of the north, would sweep across the country. They carried tons of sand and dust for thousands of kilometers. These storms would blanket major cities like Beijing in a thick, yellow haze, grounding flights and forcing people to stay indoors. For those living closer to the desert's edge, life was a constant struggle for survival. Crops failed as topsoil blew away, and water sources dried up. Many families were forced to abandon their ancestral homes, becoming ecological refugees in their own country as the sands consumed their livelihoods. The problem was not just a local one. It was a national emergency that threatened the country's food security and economic stability. International experts at the time issued grim warnings. They suggested China could become the first major nation in modern history to be effectively swallowed by desert. The relentless advance of the sand seemed unstoppable. The government knew that a conventional approach would not be enough to turn the tide. A solution was needed that matched the incredible scale of the problem itself. Something bold and unprecedented in human history. The nation had to fight back or face a catastrophic future. In the late 20th century, the fight began in earnest. It started not with heavy machinery, but with people. A massive mobilization effort saw millions of volunteers, from city workers to students and soldiers, travel to the desert frontiers. Their mission was simple, but grueling: to stabilize the moving sands. They painstakingly laid down vast grids made of straw, planting them in checkerboard patterns across the dunes. These simple grids helped to break the wind's power at ground level, giving newly planted vegetation a chance to take root. It was the first step in a long, arduous journey to reclaim the land from the desert's grip. In 1978, China officially launched one of the most ambitious ecological projects ever conceived. It was called the Three North Shelter Belt Program, but it soon became known around the world as the Green Great Wall. The plan was audacious. It aimed to create a massive belt of forests stretching across China's northern regions, from the northeast to the northwest. This living shield of trees was designed to act as a colossal windbreak. It would block the path of the sandstorms and halt the advance of the deserts. This was not a short-term fix. It was a multi-generational commitment, a project scheduled to span 73 years and unfold in 8 distinct phases. The scale of the undertaking is difficult to comprehend. The goal was to increase forest coverage across a vast portion of the country, eventually covering nearly half of China's land area with a protective green barrier. To achieve this, an unprecedented tree planting campaign was put into motion. Over the decades, more than 106 billion trees have been planted. This monumental effort has had a visible impact. Official figures show that over 53% of all manageable desert land in China has now been brought under control. An area of desertified land, larger than the entire United Kingdom, has been stabilized and reclaimed, a testament to the project's sheer size and persistence. The results on the ground have been transformative for many regions. In the Three North Shelter Belt area, forest coverage has risen from just over 12% to nearly 14%. While that may seem like a small increase, it represents a huge area of new, resilient ecosystem. These new forests help to anchor the soil, retain precious moisture, and create microclimates that are less harsh and more hospitable to life. The number and intensity of sandstorms have noticeably decreased in many parts of northern China. This has provided relief to millions of people who once lived under the constant threat of being buried by sand and dust from the encroaching deserts. However, the Green Great Wall has not been without its difficulties. Creating a forest in an arid environment is an immense challenge. Water scarcity is a constant problem, and ensuring the long-term survival of the newly planted trees requires continuous effort and resources. Early on, some critics pointed out that planting vast monocultures, or single species of trees, could be risky. These fast-growing trees could potentially deplete the limited groundwater, making the soil even drier in the long run. Planners have since adapted, focusing more on planting a mix of trees, shrubs and grasses that are better suited to the local climate and use less water. As the Green Great Wall began to take root, China embarked on another, equally ambitious plan to transform its deserts. Instead of just seeing them as a threat to be contained, engineers and policymakers began to view them as a resource. Deserts receive an incredible amount of sunlight, making them ideal locations for generating solar power. This led to the creation of what some now call the Solar Great Wall. In places like the Kabuki Desert in Inner Mongolia, vast solar farms were constructed stretching for miles across the sandy landscape. One such installation contains nearly 5 million solar panels, forming a shimmering blue sea in the middle of the yellow desert. These massive solar installations serve a brilliant dual purpose. Their primary function is to generate clean, renewable electricity. By harnessing the sun's energy, China has rapidly become the world's largest producer of solar power. This helps the country meet its growing energy demands, while reducing its reliance on fossil fuels, a key part of its strategy to combat climate change. The electricity generated in these remote desert locations is then transmitted across the country through a network of ultra-high voltage power lines, lighting up cities and powering industries thousands of kilometers away from the source. This turns a once barren wasteland into a powerhouse for the nation. The second, equally important function of these solar farms is ecological restoration. The endless rows of solar panels provide shade for the ground beneath them. This simple act has a profound effect on the desert environment. The shade lowers ground temperatures and, crucially, reduces the rate at which moisture evaporates from the soil. The panels also act as physical barriers that slow down the wind at ground level, much like the straw grids used in earlier efforts. This combination of shade, moisture retention, and wind protection creates a more favorable microclimate, allowing vegetation to grow where it previously could not. This ingenious combination of technology and nature has created a unique synergy. Grasses, shrubs, and even certain crops are now planted between and under the solar panels. What was once a sea of death is now dotted with patches of green. The plants help to stabilize the soil further, preventing erosion and creating a self-reinforcing cycle of ecological recovery. The transformation of the Kabuki Desert stands as a powerful example. This 18,600 square kilometer desert, once one of the most hostile environments in China, is now a hub for both renewable energy and innovative agriculture, demonstrating how technology can be used to heal the land. The combined impact of these massive projects has been life-changing for the people living on the edge of the desert. The transformation of the Kabuki Desert alone is credited with lifting over 100,000 local residents out of poverty. The construction and maintenance of the solar farms, along with the ecological restoration work, have created thousands of new jobs. Local communities, which once had no choice but to flee the encroaching sands, now have a strong economic incentive to stay. They find work planting trees, maintaining solar panels, or engaging in new forms of agriculture, such as growing medicinal herbs or grazing livestock in the shade of the panels. China's success in pushing back the desert has not gone unnoticed by the rest of the world. The United Nations has praised the Kabuki model as a potential blueprint for other nations facing similar challenges of desertification and land degradation. China is now actively exporting its knowledge, technology, and strategies. It is helping countries in Africa's Sahel region and across the Middle East to develop their own programs to combat desertification. By sharing its hard-won experience, China is positioning itself as a global leader in environmental restoration, using its soft power to build partnerships and address one of the planet's most pressing ecological threats. Despite the remarkable achievements, significant challenges remain. The long-term ecological impact of planting so many trees in arid regions is still a subject of debate. Critics rightfully raise concerns about the potential for these projects to overtax scarce groundwater resources, which could lead to other environmental problems down the line. Furthermore, maintaining the vast solar farms is a costly and difficult endeavor. Dust storms can cover the panels, reducing their efficiency and requiring constant cleaning. Ensuring these massive projects are sustainable in the long term, both economically and ecologically, will require ongoing innovation and adaptation. Nonetheless, China's war on desertification represents a powerful story of human ingenuity and national will. By combining the low-tech solution of planting trees with the high-tech solution of building solar farms, the nation has managed to turn a devastating environmental crisis into an opportunity. It has reclaimed land, generated clean energy, and created new economic possibilities for its people. As the world grapples with the interconnected challenges of climate change, land degradation, and poverty, China's Great Walls, both green and solar, offer a compelling, if complex, model for a more sustainable future. The world is watching and learning.